This is a video about an issue I believe is very important in British society, extremely important. As a nation, we are one of the nations in the world that has the most influential print press. In the United States, the news media, television news media, is very influential. In Britain, the influential news comes from the print press. It's very, very powerful. You cannot underestimate it. We've a wide selection of newspapers, and I believe we have a very high rate of newspaper readership. Generally, British newspapers are divided into a few categories. I studied journalism at university, so I have some knowledge about this. You have so-called quality newspapers, or broadsheets, which tend to be professional in terms of the writing and their approach. They could be left or right in terms of their outlook. Then you have middle road papers and tabloids. There's quite a bit of grey area between tabloids and middle road papers, and I should say the word tabloid actually refers strictly to the size. Not many people realise that. So a better term really is the red top press. And in this video I'm going to be talking about just how much I have absolute contempt for Britain's right-wing red top press. Now I say right-wing red top press because the vast bulk of it is right-wing, with one exception, possibly two exceptions, and those are the Daily Mirror and possibly the Star, the Morning Star. It could be described as tabloid-esque. It's basically a communist newspaper, but frankly its readership is so small that it barely qualifies as a major newspaper. The Daily Mirror does have quite a big readership. It's the largest left-wing tabloid. I'm not going to be talking about it in this video. I don't like any tabloid, including the Daily Mirror, because I believe their style is dangerous, populist in the wrong way, and very, very damaging to society. However, I exclude the Daily Mail from this video on the grounds that I really don't think it's as nasty, and it doesn't attack vulnerable people in the same way as the other rags. So I don't like it because I don't think it's professional, but I'm not including it in three particular newspapers, so-called, that I'm going to talk about in this video. And I'm sure I've made videos about this before, and the thing is, with a 15-minute bandwidth, that it's really difficult to include everything I want to say. So inevitably there will be some things left out, but I'll just try and fit in what I can. The three tabloids, red tops, I'm going to be talking about is the Daily Express, Daily Mail and the Sun. And I'll give you a quick bit of background to these three now. So the Sun was founded in 1964. Its current editor is David Dinsmore. It has a daily circulation in July 2013 of 2,281,000. The Daily Mail is the second largest newspaper in the country. Daily readership of 1,863,000. It was founded in 1896. Its editor is Paul Dacre. The Daily Express was founded in 1900. Its editor is Whittow, and it has a significantly smaller readership of 530,000 in January 2013. Now add those three together, the readership I'm talking about, circulation I should say, you have a figure, I'm just doing maths quickly in my head here, let's say about 5 million. Now that's only circulation, that's only papers that are sold. If you consider that an average tabloid will be bought, and let's say that goes into a household of 4 people, and they all read it, or they all look at it, which is often the case, then you can multiply that by, and then say those 3 papers between them have a readership of perhaps 20 million. That's not an exaggeration. That's easily a third of the entire population of the United Kingdom. So the influence of these papers cannot be underestimated. It really, really can't. And if you're thinking, oh well, people know it's trash, they don't believe it, unfortunately that's not the case. You can see a very clear correlation in a lot of public opinion and the sort of tabloid opinions that are thrust onto the public. And it's pretty obvious that people are influenced by what they read in the newspapers. Personally, I buy the Eye or the Independent. That doesn't mean I agree with everything that's in it, but I think it genuinely does go with its title. It is a genuinely independent paper. That's what I like and respect about it. No other paper in Britain can really claim that. The Guardian occasionally I buy, the Times I occasionally buy. I think the Times, although it's a conservative paper, I don't think it's hard right. I think it's relatively centrist. The Daily Telegraph, although it's a quality paper, I think it's just far too Tory to be really. It's a bit of a joke, actually. It's more like the Tory graph than the Telegraph, because its Tory bias is so obvious. And likewise, the Guardian's bias to the hard left is also obvious. So the Eye, the Independent, I tend to be my papers of choice. And I don't even believe everything that's in them. I think it's dangerous to believe absolutely anything you read in any paper. And there are columns I take issue with in the Eye, and I'll write in to express that. But I honestly believe, and this might sound snobby, but I honestly believe a lot of people who buy the Sun, the Daily Mail and the Express really do believe what's in them. Of the three of them, maybe the most dangerous is the Daily Mail. The Daily Express is very vicious, very nasty, but like I said, its circulation is relatively small compared to the others. The Daily Mail has a very high circulation, almost 2 million, and it tries to pretend that it's more than a tabloid. It tries to take on a semi-serious style. It thinks it's above the Sun, i.e. it has no paid free and that sort of thing, but in my opinion it's just as dangerous, maybe more so. The Sun has already been exposed as a criminal enterprise, and the Crocodile Tears, a former Redditor, I forget the guy's name now off the top of my head, but they were Crocodile Tears. Believe me, had they not been caught, they wouldn't have given a damn. Tabloid editors, in my opinion, I want to be quite clear here. Like I said in my last video, I'm very sincere about my views. I try to rise above hating anybody. There's a lot of people I take issue with. There's a lot of ideologies I despise, but I try to rise above hating individuals. One group I do make an exception for is tabloid editors. I agree with Hugh Grant. I believe they embody a culture of pure evil. And if you think that's a strong word, if you really believe that tabloids cannot do damage, I don't know where to start to convince you otherwise, because there's so much abundant evidence to show just how dangerous these rags are. I do have absolute deep contempt, to put it mildly, for those three men, David Dinsmore, Hugh Whittow and Paul Dacre, as the editors, and I will have contempt for their successors and their predecessors. It doesn't matter who is editing those papers, because the general approach will not change. That I guarantee you. It's a culture of evil in those papers. And what they are doing is absolute poisonous. It's absolutely poisonous. What they're doing on a daily basis is stirring up hatred against an entire block of society, most notably the unemployed. It is impossible to go past a newsstand on a daily basis and see at least one of those rags say something about benefits. And they do it in a very glaring, in-your-face manner. And I guarantee you it is distorted information. Now these papers are clever in the sense that they don't make outright lies. They will throw some truths in there. And there's things that would be hard to disagree with. So for example, they'll talk about a terrorist attack and they'll say, oh, this is bloody carnage. Well, of course it is. That's obvious. They'll talk about some thug mugging an old lady, and they'll talk about how terrible that is. Of course. But if you look between the lines and you look at some of the other things the tabloids do, there's actually a very, very nasty and dangerous culture that these so-called papers take on. I think it's insulting to call them newspapers. To my line of thinking, a newspaper should be a publication that provides information on news. Tabloids, the red top press, throws opinions in your face. It shoves opinions down your throat. Sadly, it does influence a lot of people. I honestly believe that lives have been taken over the sort of hate that these papers put out. And yes, it's true the government does that as well, but the government wouldn't get the sort of votes they get without the influence of the gutter press and the distortion. And people believe this crap. So, for example, what they will do is they will take an extreme case of welfare abuse. Say, for example, a family living on welfare and getting in thousands and not working, that sort of thing. And they will say, this is the common situation. Everyone on welfare is like this. And whatever other information they may put, I guarantee you they will not have it as a headline. So there's a very clear agenda with what they are doing. It's the same with immigration. They scapegoat and they spread hatred against immigrants. Especially the Daily Express. It will have glaring headlines like 500,000 more illegals enter Britain. But they will not put into that report any concept of proportionality. They will not talk about how net immigration has actually went down. Another issue is with crime. They definitely scaremonger. They lead the general public to believe that crime is out of control. What they do is they get a particularly heinous crime and they'll plaster it all over their cover and they will say this is the general situation. Now you'd have to be a pretty cold person not to have sent some outrage at a terrible crime. And goodness knows I'm no lefty when it comes to crime. But it is dangerous to distort crime statistics. It's dangerous to keep the public frightened as they do. And these rats know what they're doing. And one reason I have total contempt for these little men is because they are cards. Politicians, especially within the Tory party, may enact legislation which I have called cardly when it scapegoats people who can't defend themselves, but at least politicians like Ian Duncan Smith, a man whom I also have contempt for, at least he's accountable, at least he's elected. With tabloid editors, these people are not elected. They slink behind their editorial desks. They never have to face the public, ever. They're never dragged before inquiries. Well, they were during the backlash over phone hacking, but the vast majority of the time they can literally get away with doing what they want. And there is a culture in the tabloid world of extreme arrogance. And what is most despicable about them is they hide behind press freedom. Press freedom should not give these slime balls a red light to do what they do. Green light, I should say. And that may seem like vitriolic language on my part, but I'm unemployed. I know what it's like to face financial anxiety on a daily basis. I'm not claiming welfare, just for the record, but I have nothing but hatred for what these horrible little men are doing on a daily basis. Because I guarantee you they're making money out of this. They're millionaires. And they're spreading hatred against immigrants, against unemployed people. They have a record of homophobia as well, just for good measure. And it makes me sick to the core. Whatever they may do in terms of charity appeals, because they're clever, they'll throw in the occasional ad for Oxfam or whatever. Whatever they do, it does not justify the damage they are doing in society. This is how dictators get into power. The sort of propaganda these vicious rags are putting out. And no doubt they will retort, oh well, the left does the same thing. Not on the same level it doesn't. You cannot compare the influence of the left-wing media to the right-wing media in Britain. There's no comparison. I'm getting at the end of the bandwidth here, but I simply have contempt for these men. I believe they're dangerous, and I believe their influence is pure poison, and I would like to see their activities much more curtailed through legislation. I'll leave it there.